Welcome into Hour 3. It is Loho Guest Week on a Thursday night. Peggy Kaczynski was here in Hour 1. Kelly Kroll just left the building, but not before we got a good picture.
Yes, we did. Is Zach coming up with a Bears report? That's what we used to use, remember? Way back in the day.
That's right.
This was Zach's Bears hit music.
That was his Bears hit music. Well, we don't have to worry about that anymore, as he did his last Bears show last night before he heads out to the desert to go cover the Cubs.
He's a nervous wreck.
Yes, he is. And he shouldn't be, because he's going to do great. The voice that you hear is a voice that you don't hear a lot here on the Score Airways, but you hear all of the sounds that he employs on the show. He used to be the sound man on this show. He's a full-fledged member of the A-Team back in the day. But usually what happens is if you are a full-fledged member of the A-Team, you graduate off of this show and someone takes you and puts you on another show where you hopefully make more money than what you do making here out on the nighttime show.
Laurence is like the Score's answer to the Cubs Dominican
training ground.
The training ground there. Yeah, that's what this show is.
That's good though. That's the goal. That's what the hope is. That's Chris Tannehill, aka Tanny. Hey Chris. Hi Chris. I appreciate you doing this, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's surreal being in here with you on this side for a whole hour. I can't believe it. Especially since I don't think I've ever told you this, but my first interaction with you, I had to have been, I think it was during the Me and Z show. You guys were doing a giveaway for Blackhawks tickets. I couldn't have been any older than like 13 or 14. And the contest was compare someone in Chicago sports with like a cartoon character. So I did the cliche, answer that a 13-year-old kid would have. McCaskey is Mr. Burns. And I won tickets for the Hawks game. So that was way back in the day. And then now I'm here with you now. So that's pretty cool.
You know what's crazy? Rami Makhlouf is going to be joining us at 9 o'clock. And he said that, like, the reason that he thought he could get into radio is because he used to listen to the Me and Z show.
There you go.
That is terrifying.
Part of my upbringing, too. So
that is terrifying. Well, I'm glad that people get a chance to hear you, because usually they hear you through drops. They hear you through the music beds. And I want to talk about so much. But I'd like to start talking with you about your love of the White Sox.
Oh, boy.
So how does that start? Because haven't you lived most of your life on the north side?
And my entire life on the north side. In fact, about as far north as you can go before you hit Evanston. I grew up in Rogers Park. My dad was a huge White Sox fan. His dad, a huge White Sox fan. And as the story goes, back in the 60s, my grandfather rooted for both teams, which I think was, I don't know if it was commonplace back then, but I think it was more accepted. And people were just like, oh, you support both teams. And then the Cubs' 69 collapse, he wasn't a fan of certain things, not necessarily on the field, but the way certain players acted towards each other. I think he didn't like Sano and how he criticized, I think it was Don Young for dropping a fly ball back in the day. So, like, he decided then, he's like, I can't root for the Cubs anymore. I don't like that. So we're a White Sox family, and that's how it goes. And I think he had my grandfather, before he went off to World War II, had a tryout with the White Sox minor league system, maybe, back then. So, there's history there. And of course, my great uncle was Lee Tannehill, whose brother was Jesse, who was a pitcher for the Red Sox. But Lee was on the White Sox in the early aughts, and he was the first White Sox player to hit a home run in the old Comiskey Park, a grand slam at that. So there's some history there with the Tannehills and White Sox. So, but it's like most things with baseball, it's a patriarchal thing. That's how I got into it.
So you have a daughter.
I do.
How are you incorporating White Sox into her life?
Well, it's more of just a family thing. Like, this is what we do. We go to baseball games during the summertime, and I don't make her like, oh, you have to root for the White Sox. I'm not one of these people who like it tries to ingrain it early. I hope that she associates White Sox baseball with having a good time with mom and dad. Sometimes with just dad, sometimes with just mom. But we go to games, we have a good time. Right now she's only 3, so she associates it with hot dogs and ice cream. So, as long as you keep those coming throughout the course of a game, she can't have a bad time. So,
No, that's a great way to associate the game.
It's literally one of my favorite things to do in the world is go out with the family to a White Sox game. So, what's
your go-to when you go to White Sox games? What are you looking to accomplish from a concourse standpoint?
Oh, from a culinary standpoint, I pretty much have a standard order, and I go to enough games a year where I should switch it up more often. But as soon as I'm walking in the building, after I grab my program, I grab my elotes with everything. And then I make my way over to the Italian sausage with marinara, usually 2, depending on if I'm really. Usually I'm like starving by the time I get down there after working an afternoon show. And then, make my way down to the craft cave, get a couple of 3 Floyds, and go from there. But
well, that's the next place that I wanted to go with you, because besides being a White Sox fan, besides being a guy who has an incredible musical background, which we'll get to in a little bit, you are kind of known around here as a beer guy.
Okay.
How did that start? How did you decide that you wanted to learn more, not just drink beer, but learn beer?
I don't even know if I would say to learn beer. I just associated with, Maddie and I got into it. He got into craft beer thing a little earlier than I did, Matt Baticola, and we got into it and we started sharing stuff. Like, I like this. Okay, well, I like this. And then I got to know the guys over at 3 Floyds, Andrew Mason, who has since moved on to Solemn Oath Brewing out in Naperville. And I got a chance to go up there couple weeks ago, and they've got a nice facility there. Should check them out. But yeah, I'm a big fan of just stuff that you can see from the ground up, as far as, get to know the people who do the artwork and just everything on an independent level, and seeing how things operate. I've grown a bigger appreciation of craft beer just through meeting the people involved with it.
It seems to me that is a theme for you, that when the concept of independent and the art.
Yeah, it's ingrained in me.
Yeah. So let's get into that. Let's talk music. Now, you know me, I am one of your biggest advocates.
And I appreciate that. As a matter of fact, last night we went to Disney on Ice at the United Center, and we popped on the radio. And shout out to Dee and Davis. They were great last night. And we turned it on right when you guys were talking about Tony, then about me. I looked at the wife. I was like, see, I'm kind of a big deal around here in these parts. Kid was already asleep in the back. I'm like, hey, wake up. You got to hear this. They're talking about your old man here. But yeah, that was very nice of you. I appreciate that.
The thing that I think that a lot of people don't understand is that the reason that I think that you're the best sound guy is because of your background as a DJ. And you used to host the Hip Hop Project back in the day at Loyola. But I feel like that gives you an advantage that other people that have been sound guys here, and I talked about it last night, I was pretty good when I was behind the board. That is not the case anymore, because I've been away from a board for a long time. I could run a break. Like, I think that if you put me over there, if Michael B. Jordan came in here and beat Tony's ass, and he couldn't run the board, I could at least run the board for a break.
Wait. Why is Michael B. Jordan coming here? Why is Wallace going to beat Tony's ass for the show?
That's the thing. Tony has never watched Wallace. He's never watched The Wire, and he hates Michael B. Jordan because of...
Everybody says hates. I just think he's average.
You are a hater.
A hater. He hates Michael B. Jordan because of 2K17.
Okay, now I'm a father of child of 3 years old, so I haven't played video games since 2014. So explain why.
He had an acting gig. They did a whole movie thing in the game, and he was just terrible.
So
maybe the script was bad. I know he's a good actor. I know that for a fact.
Well, he hasn't seen Fruitvale Station.
Okay.
He hasn't seen Friday Night Lights. So all of the things that Michael B. Jordan
for,
yes,
he's like, nah, I'm good.
Seen.
But this video game thing right here.
I've seen Creed, also average.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So I could run a board. Spiegel was really good.
Okay.
And Spiegel was good in the days of cutting tape, and the stuff that Mac used to ask him to do for those opens was unbelievable. And when I was a young producer and trying to help Spiegs out, there was a studio back at the old place in the bunker called Studio C. And that's where you knew that's where Spiegel was going to be starting at about 9:30. That he was going to be in there putting stuff together. And so then you're talking about putting stuff on the reel-to-reel, cutting it up, and then putting it on a bunch of different carts.
I do remember the old setup because I was actually in that building one time when I was in high school before you guys moved to NBC. Mike North knew my dad from playing 16-inch softball back in the day.
Shocking.
So of course, north side thing. So he let us come up there and take a tour, and that was like my first. Like, I was already in radio at that point, but that was my first experience at the Score, and I think by then I was all in.
But like,
shout out to Pappy.
Speaks trying to get to that deadline of getting the open ready before the show. Like, it was amazing to watch him work. And then Jason was really, really good on the board too. But I think the thing that sets you apart And I guess we could probably say the same thing for Speaks as far as his musical career. Like the sonic aspect of the job, seeing all the things that you can do as a DJ, and then you incorporating that for the afternoon show here, whether it was Bors and Bernstein or now the Bernstein and Goff show, and for a little while when it was my show, is amazing. So what I like to always tell people is they need to hear your DJing work.
Okay.
So to me, your magnum opus is the Windy City Soul set.
Thank you very much. I know you've been probably the biggest supporter of that project, and it's my favorite project because it's one that took years to assemble and create. And I was like, if I'm going to do it, I got to do it perfectly. And for those who don't know what it is, it's a 80-minute mix of soul breaks. And what soul breaks are for this mixtape purpose was original samples of hip hop and R&B songs that you hear all the time, but it's the original source material, the old 60s and 70s and even 80s soul music that is the inspiration for hip hop songs that you know. So, and then you get a chance to cut those records up and let them play out, kind of like they did in hip hop's infancy, where you just let the records roll and, you know, play the breaks out. So it was one of my favorite projects I've ever done because it taught me a lot about music. Also, I just, the more you kept digging and digging, the more I would learn. And it just made me a better music consumer for doing that project. So I appreciate you supporting it.
I've always wanted to ask you, was the goal to have as many connections to Chicago as you did? Because when I listen to that, I hear artists that are from Chicago. Mm-hmm. I hear artists that have been sampled by artists from Chicago. And I didn't know if that went into your thinking when you were putting the list together.
I don't know if it was something that I did intentionally, but with my background with the hip hop project, the number one thing we try to do was support local hip hop artists. And I think it's just second nature to me. It's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it with the Chicago slant to it. So it'll have its own sound of someone listening from New York or LA. So they know exactly where it's coming from. It's always got to have a little Chicago attitude, a little Chicago flavor to it. So,
but the thing is that the Tanny doesn't just have that. I want to know from you, where's the place that you want me to push people to listen to your stuff? Because
it's so tough these days with mixes.
Right. Because what I heard, like I went down a Cosm Rocks, which is the stage name for one Chris Tannehill.
Well, it was. I don't know if I guess it is currently. I did do a mix in the last year, so I guess we can still say that.
But if they're going to search, they need to search that. Yeah. So on Mixcloud, if you search Cosm Rocks,
COSMROKS, yep,
you'll find Tanny stuff. So Mixcloud is one place where they can find it, right?
Yes, correct. I've got mixes on SoundCloud also, but lately I've been uploading old mixes to my YouTube channel, which if you just search Chris Tannehill on YouTube, you'll see. It'll be a great bridge for you. You'll see my best production pieces from here, along with the full mixtapes on there that I've done back in the day. And I've worked with artists like Cormega and a lot of local artists here from Chicago that I'm extremely proud of. The Prime Meridian is there, and it's a good place to start because it has everything there. So you can kind of see the lineage of one thing to another and kind of see where I'm coming from when I do production here.
Where did that come from? Where did that love of music come from?
It's probably, I think most families are music families per se. Like, I remember my mom would drive me to school. It was always like listening to classic rock on the radio or, listening to Steve Gary, so it was always a mesh of like old school classic rock and talk radio. And then it wasn't until I met my best friend, Rob, his brother, DJ Turnaround, who I went on to do the hip hop project with. He's the one that got us all into underground hip hop stuff and records and turntables. So I don't think I would have any of this without my guy, Sal, DJ Turnaround.
So when you decide, okay, this is something that I'm going to immerse myself in, how old are you?
Let's see. I remember it pretty vividly. We had in grade school, we had a sock hop school dance. It was like 7th grade, and we were the cool kids. We were just like, I'm not gonna sit in here and try and mac to girls. Let's listen to this Ghostface Iron Man album in the back of the auditorium, and that's pretty much how it went down. And then it was just that. It was just like try to consume as much music as you possibly could, and just try to find out independent stuff. And me and my guy Rob would just sit there and listen to records and you know, Wu-Tang, Gangstar, all that stuff is my favorite stuff. So
when did you know that you had a talent for DJing? And how did that develop?
I don't even know if I'm that talented at it per se. Like, this is where I'll always fight you on this one.
The lie detector says that is false.
Well, in like because of my guy DJ Turnaround, I was able to practice on his turntables, and he would scold me because I would leave records laying out with no covers on them. I was like, I would assemble the records that I wanted to play, have on my mixtape before I even knew how to cut, scratch, or blend. I would have them all laid out in the bedroom, like just without the covers on them.
Wow!
And he would come home and curse me out. But in about 1999, I finally saved up enough money to buy my own turntables, and I got a mixer as a birthday present from my wife, Odie, who's out there listening, I think. And so from then, it was like, once you get those turntables, anyone who's ever been a DJ will tell you, once you get those turntables, that's a wrap. Not many people ever just get them and just let them sit there. Usually it becomes a part of your life. And I still have the same 2 turntables. I just got one of them tuned up a couple years ago. They're still running, and I love it.
Do you prefer to spin wax?
No, because... Well, the funny thing is, when I buy music, I buy more vinyl, because the thing with buying vinyl is they'll give you the digital download card, and then you can kind of preserve the quality of. I don't get a chance to listen to a lot of records having a 3-year-old, so I listen to most of my stuff like on my phone with headphones. So I can't always go down to the lab and listen to records on turntables. So plus with the digital DJing software you have now, you really don't have to use records a lot anymore. But I am a fan of just supporting artists, and the fan of still looking at the album artwork, the liner notes, and things like that. That stuff will never go away as far as nostalgia things. So I'll always prefer to have a record collection. I've sold my CDs, I sold my DVDs, but the the collection keeps expanding.
How many records do you have?
Let's see. I went into had a moment of OCD panic over
OCD panic.
Yeah, over the Labor Day vacation, because I couldn't find a record. It was when Ice Cube came here. Ice Cube came here to the Score Studios to promote the Big 3, and I could not find my America's Most Wanted record that I wanted him to sign. And I freaked out, and I eventually had to buy a copy because I knew he was coming in. And I had to buy a copy, make sure that he could sign one. And I was like, you know what? From now on, I want to make sure I know where all my records are, what I have, what I don't have.
So you started a catalog?
I started. I didn't physically catalog it, but I started to organize and alphabetize, because they were all in storage boxes, and they still are, but now they're all in order. And I think the count was around 5,000 records, something like that, which is really not a lot to someone who's a record collector, but for me, it's growing. It's a never-ending process to anyone that collects records know. So
yeah, my brother has a storage.
Do you know how big his collection is?
I have no idea, but I remember when my brother got his first turntable set.
Okay,
and I remember the music hasn't stopped. Like, if you go to my brother's place, he has a studio set up where he just does stuff. Like, he just loves records. And I know that he has a storage place.
Yeah.
His records are stored somewhere. And then finding the proper place that's going to keep things at the proper temperature and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even want to guess, because I feel like I would be doing him a disservice, but I would imagine that my brother probably has 20,000 records or so.
Yeah, that would not surprise me. And I mean, I'm sure he's got boxes and boxes of stuff that he put out himself. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where I don't have my records out where I can have easy access to them. They're in storage right now, and hopefully one day we'll be able to buy a home, and I'll have a whole room dedicated with all my White Sox memorabilia and all my hip hop memorabilia. But until then, they're all in boxes until I need to take one out. Like, if Ice Cube comes back or someone else comes to the studios, I can just grab it real quick.
I will tell you that one of my best moments as a little brother, my brother was
and members of Little Brother,
and that's right. Shout out to Fonte. My brother was spinning at Betty's Blue Star.
Oh, God, yeah.
He was doing, and he doesn't spin a lot anymore. Like, he doesn't do that anymore. Although he is going to do the Silver Room party, which I'm very excited about.
I heard you guys talk about last year's last night, and I was kicking myself for not going. So
you got to
bring the
family
through. Bring the family out.
Yeah, come through, and we'll do a whole Hyde Park thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, this guy came up to my brother shaking. and he had like all of his records on vinyl. It was like, would you please sign? And I was just laughing. Like, it was so great. It's just hysterical. Chris Tannehill is our guest, a.k.a. Tanny. We're talking about all sorts of stuff. This segment being brought to you by Spot Hero. And finally, here's a way you can save time parking. Use Spot Hero anytime you park. First-time users can enter the promo code SMART for $10 off. Spot Hero, park smarter. And if you need legal advice by a reputable attorney, send questions that you want answered to cbschicago.com/legal advice or look online for free Legal Fridays with Horowitz and Associates. That's cbschicago.com/legal advice. More with Tanny coming up next here on The Score. Shep, thank you very much. I'm hanging out with Chris Tannehill.
Look how late we are. It really is true. You get on this side and you forget everything you know about a clock. You forget all of it.
And you're like a taskmaster when you're on the other side dealing with Bernstein and Goff. And before that, the Boers and Bernstein show. What was it like to work with Terry Boers?
Terry is just one of the best people that I've ever known just as a person in my life. And I grew up listening to that show when I was in high school, and that's just what you did. Like, anyone who's a fan of that show just becomes a part of your life. And the fact that I got to know him personally over the years, and I got to see him relatively recently, went over there and we watched a little Bears football earlier in the season. He's doing well. He's just such a generous guy, just such a funny guy, just one of the few great humans in this business. You know what I mean?
I try to explain that to people. I really did feel a sense of loss because we're dealing with the death of Doug Buffone as a station. Like, we're dealing with the death of Doug Buffone, and then you have Terry retiring. And I try to explain to people the importance of the hallway,
right.
The importance of guys in the hallway. And throughout my entire tenure here at The Score, those two guys have been in the hallway. That those are the two guys that if you were having a rough day, that if something wasn't quite right, if you were mad about something, that you could talk to them and they could lift you. Like, they could lift you up.
Definitely.
And that's missing. So, I mean, there's a part of me that's trying to do some of that.
Yeah.
I don't know how one ascends to Terry Boers or Doug Buffone level of doing that, but you're right.
Well, how far away are you from 25 years? You've been here
5 years away.
So, so you're closer than you think.
Yes, it'll be 20 years in May.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm honestly, like, to be in my, I guess if I were a player, I would say that I'm already in my 20th season here at The Score. That I'm excited to have been here this long and have done as many different jobs as I've done, from being a producer. At one point I was working in the sales department, and then to do,
which is important for people working in radio to know how every facet works.
Yep.
To give you a better understanding of the business.
Those 2 years that I spent working in the sales department here was the best education about radio. Now, the programming side, like, I knew because you come up working in radio, and I interned at radio stations, but having that experience of seeing how things work together and why some things need to be done at a certain time and why those things are important and all that stuff, it was really great. But not having, it's still a bit of an adjustment, even a year later, not necessarily having Terry not be on the air, but to not have him around.
Yeah.
Is weird for all of us.
Yeah, I miss my my Monday 12:45 how you doing, buddy hug, and it's just chopping it up in BMAC's office with Terry, and just getting the unfiltered Terry. It's one of the best things ever for anyone who's ever worked here or have a chance to meet the guy.
He's the
one of my
freest man on radio.
It really is.
I mean, the stuff that he was able to do and get away with and have fun doing, I aspire to be that free at some point in my career.
Well, now anyone who's read the book, Score of a Lifetime, Terry's book's out there, you should definitely go pick it up. Anyone who's read the book they get it now, I'm sure. If they didn't get it before, they definitely get it now after reading that, getting to know who he is a little bit.
I would hope so. I would hope so. So what was it like for you from a sound standpoint to transition from all of the established stuff that the Boers and Bernstein show had done to being representative of what Jason adds to the afternoon show? How have you tried to figure that out and sonically?
Yeah, it was tough, because Jason, I was just so happy for Jason, who's been a friend of mine for a long time. I was so happy that he was able to move on and finally pursue his dreams. And the fact that it allowed me to step in that slot, I never would have thought listening when I was in high school that I would all of a sudden be doing that job one day. But the most important thing for me, I was like, I'm just going to do me. And because I had so much time to season, like, when I first started interning at ESPN 1000 in 2006 up until I got the job on the afternoon show in 2012, I had a lot of time to sort of define who I was, what my sound was, what my personality would be as far as production goes, things I wanted to incorporate. So I was pretty much not a finished product per se, but I was ready to rock and be my own person and try not to follow in his footsteps, because that time when Jason was on that show is something that I don't think anyone could ever really duplicate. So why even try? So just be yourself and just, go to work every day and just, bust your behind, and, eventually you'll have your own style. And I think it worked out in the end. So.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's someone actually texted in, you revamped Who You Crappin'.
Oh boy, people were not happy about that early on. The first thing I did was I just took the old open that Jason did and I just upgraded the song quality for all the songs in it to make it sound like it was the actual, higher quality version of the song. So it sounded like, you're listening to it on FM, because times change and you're catering to people who listen on HD radios now and catering to people who listen on the stream. So I was like, let's try to revamp this a little bit, just clean it up. That's all I wanted to do. I was like, I think that was like the first thing I did when I got that job. I was like, all right, let's clean up the crap and open. And all I did was duplicate the exact same thing with higher quality sound, just to show people that I appreciate that. And people were not happy when I eventually did my own crap and open. And then because of that, I did like 2 or 3 more after that, just to say, you know what, you can't have the same thing every week. Sometimes change is good in life. So, people were upset at first, but
how does I don't say this as a put down. How does your OCD manifest itself when it comes to sound working in radio?
I think we all have the radio OCD. I'm not like, I have not been clinically diagnosed with having it. I'm just OCD about certain things, the way things should be done and the order in which they should be done. But, working in radio, it's like, and doing the show, you always have to have a few funny things for proppers every day at 1:28 or whatever when we come out. So I always have the phone on me, and I'm on Twitter a lot. I try to put it down when I'm at home, but when I'm on the train or just walking around, I'm like, okay, there's a propper there. Write it down, have my list ready to rock. So the next day when I come in, I can just start putting stuff in, and it's like one of those things where it's like the radio nightmare where it's like, the show starting, and people who have bored out before have that dream where I talked to Chris Collins about it, people like that, and they say, they have the dream of firing an opening billboard for a Sox or a Bears game and just nothing playing. I've talked to Dave Miska about this dream. The vault crashing. Yeah. So I just want to be as prepared as I can be, because there's certain things you can't control, but you can control the amount of work that you put in, and things are organized and to your liking. It's like preparing a meal.
But you take this stuff home. Like, you take you work on sound at home.
Oh, don't say that.
You don't work at home at all. You get it all done.
No. But that, like, I do a lot of that. And a lot of that is just I'm blessed with having a very flexible schedule. And around here, it's not like another job where you got to punch in, punch out. With this job, it's like, you just do your thing on your own time, but you better be ready to go when the show starts. So I'll wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock. Me and my daughter will get up and she'll watch cartoons. Then all of a sudden something will hit me for the open I want to do that day. Just pull out the laptop, get to work on it. So that way I know, today's open is done, and I can go in and I can work on other stuff, because there's always something else you could be doing when you're doing audio for a radio show. So
we're going to take a break. We got one more segment with Chris Tannehill. More with Tanny next here on The Score. This segment is being brought to you by United States Traffic Network. Looking to add your talent to a dynamic company? United States Traffic Network seeks motivated account executives to join the sales team. Send your resume to ustrafficnetwork.com/careers. My name is Laurence Holmes. This is my show. It's Loho Guest Week. We like when we have guests that come and hang out in the studio. It's been a really good night tonight. Peggy Kaczynski was here. Kelly Kroll was here. The Beer Money 100th episode is next Wednesday.
I'll be out there.
Are you going to go?
Yeah, Sarah was kind enough to reserve a table for score people. So, it's anyone wants to join me if you want to come through. I know Shane's going. I think Shep's going to go. So we're going to be in there pretty deep.
Okay, good. Joe's on weed next Wednesday if you want to go out. Chris Tannehill is my guest this hour as we talk about sound and music and all sorts of stuff. How do you think how has having your daughter changed you?
Oh, man. It makes you grow up real fast. And, I wasn't necessarily young when she was born, but it makes you become a selfless, and you put someone else's needs before yours. And when you get married, it's kind of like that. It's an easy transition into that. You put others' needs before you. But when you have a child, especially a daughter, there's nothing that I wouldn't do for her and to make her happy. It's trying at times, especially now at 3 years old. She's got her own thoughts and opinions. Going to be 4 in May, and now she'll tell you she's got a little something for you. Like last night we went to Disney on Ice, and she couldn't see, so she was sitting on my lap. So the songs from Frozen come on, and I can tell she wants to sing, but she's kind of shy. Reminds me a lot of myself. I was very shy, still am, but she's kind of mumbling the songs, and I'm like trying to get her to sing, so I'm helping her sing a little bit, and she's like, no, Daddy, no singing. But she did let me sing some of the Moana songs that The Rock sings because it's a boy's part, so it's cool for me to sing that part. So
okay, so that she is giving you direction.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
On what it is that you're supposed to be doing when you're hanging out with her.
Exactly. So it's all downhill from here. So
what's your favorite drop?
Oh man, it's probably the Art Norman laugh. And I'm too far.
Roll damn time.
Oh, that's a good one too. But the Art Norman laugh is a good one. It's just the belting out of a it's good for any scenario. And I think Tony could find it very quickly.
We'll see. We'll see if Tony can find it.
I should have left my machine plugged in over there.
Yeah, see, I was worried if you would be going through withdrawal, not being able to both talk and just throw drops in.
Well, there it is. That's my favorite drop, and I think Shep can attest to that's his favorite as well. It's like no matter what kind of mood you're in, you hear that drop.
Tony. There it is.
You're in a better mood. I'm sorry, sir, you have 5 months to live. Okay, I can deal with this.
Having been around Art Norman a little bit,
yeah.
That dude is that dude all the time.
And I don't even remember the origin of it other than that Jason used to play it all the time. And I know that was back when, you guys were NBC Tower.
He would come up.
Yeah.
Art would just...
I remember seeing him all the time, yeah.
He would just... I want to go see what's happening at the score. And he'd just walk in and people like, oh, it's Art Norman. Let him in on the air. And he'd go... But I mean, the dude that you hear... You can hear all of Art Norman's personality in that drop. Because that dude is that guy. All the time.
And you can so there it is.
It's great. The 83 Nation thing. Mm-hmm. I can't let you out of here without talking about that. I mean, obviously, Beer Money, we've been talking about that.
Yeah.
When did you know that it's kind of reached critical mass?
It's one of those things where it took a few years to take off. I mean, when we started doing it on the afternoon show, I think it was Joe Dredge who tipped me to it and told me about this. A guy with a weird voice that was on this Gas Money show. You should check it out. So we played it, and originally we just kept playing the yes drop from Clark, and we just thought it was all funny. But the yes drop was my favorite initially, and we did that for a few months, and then it was like I have to figure out a way to incorporate this any chance I get. And then Ranji and I were talking about how, I played it once when 1983 White Sox were mentioned, and during a Ranji update, I think, and we just talked about, man, 83 really comes up a lot for no good reason. So, it's on the digital, and now every time, there's an 83 mention, you got to play it. And I'm terribly sorry for anyone's life who I've ruined, myself included, because they can't not hear it whenever they hear 83. So, it's one of those things that you can't really, you can't plan it. It's just weird, dumb radio stupidity that just takes off.
83.
There it is.
I thought about it the other night. I was telling you, I went over to Pancho Pistola after the show. I got dinner. I looked down at my receipt and I just started cracking up laughing because my total for dinner was 1983. And I was like, that's so perfect. Like, I got to take a picture and tell Tanny about it. But you're getting all of, like, people are just, like, sending you stuff on Twitter.
It's nonstop. And thankfully, we have one of the street bosses of 83 Nation, Matt Rodewald. He has taken it to a different level. He's put it on TV
in Phoenix
for all to see in a different market.
Like, he's doing it on purpose in Phoenix. It's like the people there got to be like, why? What is? Like, they don't even know that Rodewald's down there running an inside gag on Phoenix television.
Rodewald did a report. There's in Arizona, there's a shopping center called P83 Shopping Center. I have no idea why it's called that, but I've seen it in person when we were down there for spring training. And there was a robbery at one of the stores at P83. So, of course, he had to be down there to cover it. And it was $83 missing from the register. 83. It's so absurd, but I love him for it. But it's just, it's stupid. And it wasn't even a thing I was like, 83 is my favorite number. It was just like, how can we play this nonstop? Because the guy only said 2 words. Well, he said 1 word and 1 number on his gas money appearance, and so you figure out a way to play both as much as you possibly can. And I'm hoping that he'll come out to the Joe's event next week.
I hope so too. Tanny, this was fantastic. Thanks for agreeing to do this. I know that's not something that you're all about.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous about it, but I was like, I'm just talking to friends here, just talking to my guy Laurence, but I can't believe it time's out because I want to talk about the Winston-Salem Dash.
No,
I want to know if Dane Dunning's going to make the next step this year.
We don't have time for that.
I want to know what Bryant Flette, what he's going to do.
We don't have time for any of that stuff.
Man, I have a whole list here.
You can check out Chris Tannehill's work on the Bernstein and Goff show every day. If you're on SoundCloud, you can check him out there. If you're on YouTube, the Chris Tannehill YouTube page has a lot of the sound drops along with the mixes.
That's right.
Mixcloud, Cosm Rocks, COSMROKS. Look up his mixes. They are great. I highly recommend Windy City Soul. It is my favorite. It is fantastic. Trust me. You will love it when you play it.
Laurence, thank you so much just for the support and also just helping me become who I am as a radio person and a sound guy. And for those who don't know, I spent a lot of years on this particular show, and I learned what works, what doesn't work, and Laurence coached me up a lot as far as what works in radio. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and everything you've done for me personally and professionally. So.
That's very nice of you to say, and unnecessary, but very nice of you to say. We're going to take a break. My man, Ramey McClure, drove all the way from Milwaukee to come be on the show.